What's good, everyone? Welcome in episode 3 of Role Players. I'm really excited to have you in today. Before we get into the interview, I just wanted to say a couple things. First of all, thank you for joining me. It has been a really busy week in Phoenix, really busy couple weeks in Phoenix, actually, with the Super Bowl, Waste Management Open, Katie's in town, new owner for the Suns and Mercury. And that's just within my professional life. Personal life goes on as well. Dogs, wives, homes, all the above. So I appreciate everyone for joining me as I work to get these episodes out and get them recorded and provide some really impactful, engaging content, today included. I mean, the episode is full of just incredible, amazing nuggets, words of wisdom from a champion Milwaukee Bucks sales extraordinaire, Zach Younker. It's going to be a great show. But before I get into that, I just wanted to say one last thing. For our Spotify and Apple and YouTube listeners, thank you so much again for tuning in and enjoying the content there. I just wanted to point out that I also, on Wednesdays, following the episode launch on Tuesdays, on Wednesdays, I write an article on LinkedIn about the episode, just kind of diving in to the topics, a little bit of a deeper understanding from my perspective, and to share some of the thoughts and feelings that I had about what was spoken about in the episode in a greater at greater length and in greater detail. So please feel free to check that out and leave a comment. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to chat more about it. I think something that I don't want to get lost in this show is that, the people that are joining us are accessible in the sports industry. So if you want to reach out to them, I include the LinkedIn profiles of each of my guests in the show notes on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. So if you would like to connect with them, please feel free. They're looking forward to it, I promise you. And I am too. So if you want to connect with me and pick my brain and just have a conversation with me, I am more than happy to do that. Without further ado, here we get into episode 3 of Role Players with our friend, Zach Younker. Welcome, Zach Younker, to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. How's it going?
Going well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. As you can see, everyone who's watching on YouTube, we have a member of the Milwaukee Bucks here today, sporting his Champions hat, 2021. I think everyone would love to know, what do you do for the Bucks, and just kind of talk about the championship a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, blur of a season to get there, especially knowing that we did it in that COVID year. But I got my start with the Bucks when we were the perennial 8 seed, man. So for me to even be wearing this hat right now and talking to you, it's a lot of hard work behind the scenes. But I'm a premium sales executive. Basically, big fancy way to say that I'm focused on selling the corporations here in the greater Milwaukee area, surrounding areas like a Chicago, for instance. And really, I'm trying to target that larger amounts of transactions, whether that's looking at some of the courtside opportunities we have, any of those club or all-inclusive type of spaces, and then certainly some of the leases around the building. Really, what I love about what I do, though, is even though I am in this premium role, for me, we're full menu. So everything from the average Joe looking to come out to a game, all the way up to like naming rights for the building. That's me. That's my responsibility. And as long as I get that 7-figure sales goal hit, they don't care how I do it. But the bulk of my focus for sure, though, is on selling the companies in the area, and love what I do.
Okay, for sure. Yeah. And we'll get into that in more depth as we kind of go on through the podcast. But would love to start off with the specific title of your role and who your favorite player is.
Yeah. So again, specifically premium sales executive. I loved this question when you teed me up for this, and maybe it sounds a little biased, a little bit of that homer in me, but how can you not go with Giannis, right? I mean, even around the league, I can't tell you the amount of respect that guys have for the way he approaches everything, his work ethic. I mean, I'll be honest, he's younger than I am. And if he'd have handed me $1 million paycheck when he did so young and told me to work as hard as he did and put on 50 pounds of muscle over his first 5 years in the league, the guy's an animal. I think he brings a lot of that Mamba mentality from the late Kobe Bryant into his game and plays with that edge. and I love some of the things he said too. He doesn't want to work out with these other guys in the summer. He doesn't want to make friends. He views them very much as competition, and he doesn't want them to have an edge on anything that he's doing out there on the court. So I gotta go with Giannis. But if I eliminate the homer side of things, I'll go with MJ. I grew up in Illinois in the '90s, and I mean, I named my son. His middle name is Jordan, so MJ is always a good fallback or plan B, right?
Yeah, can't be mad at either of those answers. Two amazing players. I don't think it's home review at all to say Giannis. I think, probably in everyone's top three of favorite players, not just because of his play, but he's got such an infectious personality. In our last podcast, we talked with someone from the Hawks, and she had said that her favorite player was Troy Polamalu of the Steelers. And
Okay.
it's really fun to talk with people whose favorite players are not just amazing basketball, football, soccer athletes, but also have such a great personality. You can kind of fall in love with them and feel like they're just part of your family. And I'm sure that's what Giannis has done with the city of Milwaukee, coming from a different country with no roots anywhere in the United States to plant himself in one of the smaller markets and really make it his own. Kind of talk about what that's been like to see it firsthand, of how someone who was not a top draft pick, I'm 15, that's top, but not in the lottery, with not a lot of expectations, to become a transcendent generational talent and kind of, I mean, you can speak better than I did, change the city.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he has some competition for that mayor of Milwaukee, if you will. Bobby Portis is another fan favorite that everybody you hear the Bobby chants. There's the Bobby merchandise, so
Of course.
he's closing that gap a little bit with Giannis. But I mean, very much like what 34 does on the court's phenomenal. I mean, even outside of my own perspective, you could just go to Disney Plus, check out Rise, and see his story. And I think they did an awesome job of painting that picture straight from the book that's out there as well. But you're right. I mean, guys like that, especially outside of the lottery, it's a crapshoot. You never know. There's a lot of great NBA talent there. There's also a lot of busts in that role. But I think he just came in, he had the right attitude, and he approached everything. I think his first interview with the team, like following him, he had his late father with him at the Bradley Center, and he looked up and he told his dad, like, maybe my name will be up there one day. And I think he just had those aspirations from the get-go, and you still see that. I mean, the guy's work ethic, again, incredible. And I think just the circumstances he had to overcome to even be here, whether it be Milwaukee, whether it be one of the larger markets, I think he's just got the personality and the mentality that fits Milwaukee's toughness and that blue collar edge. And he's even admittedly said he doesn't like the bigger markets. So I think it was just a natural fit. But it's funny, before I even started with the Bucks or moved to Milwaukee, I was in baseball. And when they took him, I said, who the heck's that guy? Like, what? He's a project. I don't even think that's a great pick, and never been happier to be wrong, obviously,
Yeah,
because I'm not wearing this hat without him on the roster. So he's literally the perfect fit for this city, what it embodies, and we're just so lucky to have him on our roster.
absolutely. And you weren't alone in that. I think, I mean, even in the lottery, it seems like no matter what league you're in, there is no for sure player, for sure talent. There's been number ones that haven't worked out. There's been number threes. There's been number sevens. And for him to go outside of the lottery and become what he's become, he's really one of one. So truly special to watch him from outside. And I'm sure it's been really exciting for you and the city of Milwaukee to have him inside. But let's pivot a little bit more to you and kind of the parallels between you and Giannis. And I mean that sincerely, about coming to the city of Milwaukee and finding your moment. So tell us, what was your moment of, you needed to work in sports, and then what was the moment where you feel like you made it?
I think the only way you could compare Giannis and myself is that we both happen to live in the state of Wisconsin. Otherwise, that man is a whole nother level of what I could hope to be in my career. But my aha moment, or my moment where I pointed up and said maybe I could be in the rafters one day like Giannis did, was really back to my days at Mizzou. I was actually working for the athletic department there. I followed along one of the guys that took me under his wing and was mentoring me. And we actually went out to, I forget the business, but he actually was going out to seek, money, like substantial money for donation projects for the arena fund. And just being a fly on the wall, watching the negotiations back and forth and the strategy, I could see the chess match, essentially going on between the two guys, and incredible. And he actually ended up closing that deal. I can't remember if it was 6 or 7 figures. I think I give him a little love and tell him 7 figures to make him look good. But as soon as I saw that happen, I said, whoa, like that was awesome. I could do that. I could see myself doing that. And I think that was really the first time that I ever had considered sales in a sales facing role within sports. I knew sports was what I wanted to do 100%, but my mindset changed that day. And I went less from wanting to be the next Scott Van Pelt or Stuart Scott on Sports Center, and more so what I am now, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone that gets into the sports field has those moments that maybe pivots from what they aspired to be when they were 7 years old to something that they truly in their later years thought of, I can do that too. So talk to me a little bit more about your day-to-day at the Bucks and how you sell, what your favorite part about your role is, and maybe something that and you've kind of sent me some answers, so it's funny that we're going to talk a lot more about what you don't like about your job.
Yeah, well, and I would say, what I do, as I alluded to earlier, I'm very much full menu. But one of the reasons I love what I do outside of getting to work in arguably the most competitive and fun industry that there is to work in, my day to day is different. I mean, today, example, BJ, like I'm talking to you doing this. How awesome is that? Another day, I could be out of the office visiting clients, shaking hands, kissing babies, so to speak. Another day, I could just be hitting LinkedIn hard and hitting the phones hard. And then, even still could be at the arena the next day for a game night and just connecting with current clients or prospective clients there. So I think it's the versatility and the flexibility that this job gives me that allows me to be successful. But my day to day is completely different, and it's not the monotonous 9 to 5, so to speak, and that typical office job. And I love that. So I know I've alluded to the phone calls, the LinkedIn aspect of things, and the face to face time. That's really where I think I fixate a lot of what I do on the day to day. But what's great again is that we are full menu sellers. So whether I'm selling ticket packages specifically, more of those one-off group opportunities, or even like some of our rentals and things like that. And even further, selling Marquette basketball, who are co-tenants of our building, and some of the concerts and shows that we've got going on. Truly, I've got my hands full, and I've always got something to be talking about with somebody, whether they're a current client or maybe a future client.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool that you get to sell many different parts. I think that's something that people outside of sports or outside of certain arenas don't understand, is that some buildings are owned by a team and they're the only ones that play in. And then there's some schools that have to come in and play, and there's concerts and different things like that also need salespeople behind them. So it's really interesting when you hear, and I think this is kind of one of the big reasons why I have this podcast, is to showcase that when you say I'm a salesperson, there is a lot of misconception that will go behind what that means. And there's a lot of incorrect assumptions that people make about salespeople, not only the job that they do, but who they are as people. I think even working in sports, I'm guilty of it myself when there's someone that I meet that works in sales. And before I know their role, I can kind of tell by their personality, oh, they seem like a salesperson. And then I learn that they're in sales. It's like, oh, that makes sense. But talk to me a little bit about the misconception of salespeople, and how that affects you day to day and what you hear from other people. So open up the floor to you about this. This was an interesting topic you sent me, so I'm excited to hear what you say about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. There is such a misconception about what we do. And I think part of that is the industry as a whole, and what it's been set up to be. I mean, I think more often than not now, every company or every organization is going the way of these robocalls or these spam or these junk calls. And it's been very off-putting. And it's funny, this is my job. This is what I do day to day, is call people. And I think, you're not going to pick up this phone call because you've been almost trained to not pick up the phone call because you don't have my number stored. You may not know that I'm even calling from the Milwaukee Bucks. It could show up as a private number potentially. And I think at the end of the day, I'm guilty of it. Like, how many times, would you and I take a phone call and we don't recognize the number? Okay, we're probably screening that call, right? So for me, I think we've been kind of trained to think, oh, salespeople, it's this used car, sleazy salesman type.
Mm.
And it's truthfully not the case. And I think that's part of the uphill struggle that we deal with, but it's also part of the reason I love what I do is because I get to show the human side of this, and that I wouldn't suggest or recommend anything to anybody that I work with that I wouldn't recommend to my own family or to my own mother. And I use that. And I think it's so fun to be able to bring, like I said, the personality to this role, the human element, and to showcase that, hey, truly, I'm looking out for you. And I'm not afraid to walk away from something. Like, if it is not a fit, I tell people up front, I'm not going to force a square peg in a round hole. I am totally okay walking away from this deal. And I think that's one of the things that I think we need to own more as people that do work in sales. And ultimately, I think it's one of the things that allows me to build such trust with people that I work with, is I just bring very easy, lighthearted conversation. I can get aggressive and be blunt and brutal when needed, but I think I don't do that necessarily. And I just be my true and authentic self. And those are some of the things that I think shine through and allow me to be successful where others maybe don't have as much success.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. I love when you said that of, you take these certain elements of your work that others may see as difficulties and challenges, because I mean, we can just be honest, sales is a very difficult job to work in. You're not always set up for success. The work that you put into it is how you get successful. It's not like, here's your base level of job requirements, and if you hit ABC every day for a year, you'll get promoted. And then if you do that for 5 years, you'll get promoted again. Your job is really, and all sales jobs are, the success of the job is truly deemed on the drive, the grit, the work that the employee puts into that job. What sort of advice would you give to younger people that are considering a job in sports and maybe you're adverse to sales? Like, how would you kind of let them know, like, if your personality is XYZ, you can do this? And what sort of advice would you give if someone is interested in sales but doesn't maybe feel like they have what it takes?
Absolutely. And I love this question too, because anytime I'm at career fairs or speaking opportunities, this is one of the first things that I address. Is ultimately, I'm a blunt and brutally honest person. Sales is tough. I mean, you hear all the time, like, people fail 7 times out of 10 in baseball, and that's good enough to get them in the Hall of Fame. We fail more than that. We fail 9 times out of 10. Like, if you close 10% of your conversations, that's a Hall of Famer in my book. Like, we are immediately from the get-go put in a position to fail. But I think the advice that I give is one, how bad do you want to work in sport? Because like you alluded to, this is where the bulk of those early on opportunities are going to come from. But two, I tell people, you're selling yourself every day, whether you know it or not. I mean, you are selling yourself as a potential job candidate to an employer. You are selling the idea like, hey, you and your buddies want to go out for the weekend. Where are you guys going? Are you going to a bar? Are you going to a club? Are you going and doing other things? And you're trying to sell your friends on those types of ideas. And I think people just don't realize how many transactional type of conversations you have on a day. So the biggest piece of advice that I give is ultimately why I keep coming back and why I've been doing this 7+ years is you get out of it what you put into it, and you're not going to be treated the same as the person next to you, which I love, because as a former athlete, like that competitive drive kind of takes over and kicks in for me, where I want to be the best. I want to be near the top or at the top. So what can I be doing to get there? And truthfully, the people that grind, work hard, and get, I guess, above the entry level position of sales, you can make a lot of good money and have a great time doing it, because there are a lot of those secondary perks, like having tickets to the games and, getting to be a part of a championship parade, for example. Like, I'm
Right.
very blessed to be one of the few to be able to say that, and to also be part of a new arena project. There are so many cool behind the scenes things that I get to do that sometimes I almost take for granted because I've done it a million times, that you're not going to get with your standard 9 to 5. But ultimately, the advice that I'll give people is understand that if you crush sales, even if it's not exactly 100% what you want to do, that can open the door to other opportunities. But you can't knock it until you try it, because like I said, it wasn't plan D, I don't even think, for me as far as career opportunities. And all it took was one aha moment to completely change my mentality, change my mindset. And here I am doing it, still out of college to this day.
Wow. Yeah. What a testament to the grind and the grit, like I was talking about, of, just putting your head down and working and seeing what comes of it. It may not have been like one of your top plans, but, I think I would, if I can speak for you, you probably look back and you say, I never expected to hit 1 million in sales. I never expected to be a part of a championship team. I never expected for this to be my career and for me to be able to work in sports and have flexibility. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about next is, I think that there are probably fewer jobs in sports that you won't work a game than when you work a game or work events outside of a 9 to 5. And yet you're telling me that you have this amazing work-life balance where you get to do a lot of different things. I mean, you're working from home now, so am I. We both work for NBA teams. Tell me a little bit about how you've been able to find this work-life balance in working in sports, because it's not easy.
No, I mean, you certainly are going to have to sacrifice a little bit when you work in sport. It's just part of the job. I think part of that, and part of that ability for me to find work-life balance, I've got to shout out the Bucks for that. I think one of the reasons I love coming into work day in and day out is they do recognize that work-life balance is so important and so vital to us being successful. Because when you do grind as hard as we do and face that uphill battle and those objections and that, I guess, rejection time in and time out, that is so mentally and physically exhausting, on top of, hey, we've got 3 games or 2 Bucks games, a college game, and then like Monster Jam maybe coming into town, who knows. It's a lot. So I love that they're willing to recognize that, hey, we respect that you guys grind, we respect that you guys hustle, and we want to do everything in our power to allow you time outside of work, which for me is extremely important. I've got two kiddos. I've got a wife. I've got a golden retriever. So being able to spend time with my family, maybe hit the golf course a little bit, like those are things that I love. And I love that they recognize that we deserve that from time to time. But, make no mistake about it, you're going to work some of those 50-hour weeks. Heck, I remember working the NBA finals, and I would basically get into the office at 8 a.m. Games are usually 7 o'clock at night, give or take. And games are 2.5 hours, and there's no way you're getting anybody out of that building. Like, as an employee, this is the blood, sweat, and tears you do as a salesperson. This is why you do it, is to be in that building to watch those games. So by the time you get out of the arena, battle the traffic to get back home, it's maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock, midnight. And then at the time, my son was maybe a month old, because we had him a week before the playoffs even started. So then from midnight to 3, I'm giving my poor wife a break because she sacrifices,
Yeah.
as a mother, to be able to allow me to do what I need to do. So I'm going to bed at 3:30, and then I'm back up 7 o'clock, dropping the kids off, ready to do it all again the next day. So there is a ton of sacrifice that goes into it, especially if you've got other, like, spouse, kids, other responsibilities outside of work. But again, at the end of the day, it is so all worth it. And again, a testament to the Bucks for being able to allow us the time to breathe and to recover and recoup. And I think that's super, super important. Whether you work in sports or not, find somebody that recognizes the importance of that work-life balance, that's going to allow you the time outside of it. Because whatever you take in sport, it's going to be a lot, and the games are going to have a burden on you. Make sure you take some time for yourself. I know mental health is certainly a big thing we're focused on right now in society.
Absolutely.
Please take care of yourself too.
Yeah. Also, shout out to all the moms and dads that stay home. You made a point of telling me about your wife. You want to just give her a quick shout out and how great she is? Like, could you do it without her?
Absolutely not. My wife is a freaking rock star. So, Lauren, I love you very much. Thanks for bearing with me. As I told you, it's kind of single mom season, as she calls it, when the NBA gets going. So, I definitely don't get as much time with my kids or my dog or my wife, but we try to take the little moments like this when we get to work from home. And definitely, like, she is holding the fort down for me, and I could not do it without any of the support she's given me.
Yeah. And you had also told me that, you work so hard um, because you want your kids to have it better than you did, which I think is such like an amazing, go dad vibe. Tell me a little bit about where that comes from and how you want to pass that on to them, that hardworking attitude and work ethic.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, like we'll go take a vacation from time to time, and I am absolutely guilty of being the guy checking emails when we're on a beach or whatever we're doing. So sometimes the grind doesn't stop, but I think that mentality was almost given to me, from a very young age. My mom, God bless her, she was a single mother, and I watched her just
Mm.
grind and struggle and do everything in her power to keep food on the table, give us the opportunities to be able to maybe go to a sporting event from time to time and spend that quality time together. And more importantly, allow me to participate in something that I loved. I mean, I've done sports year round from age like 5 all the way even through college. I was still doing a lot of that stuff. So I saw her work ethic, and I saw her grind in that struggle, and it was almost just ingrained into me that, like, that's how I almost need to be whenever I have children. I knew that's something I wanted to be. I wanted to be a dad because I didn't have my dad around. So I think for me, it's just a lot of life lessons presented that opportunity. And I knew who I wanted to be when I got to that role. And like I said, and you hit the nail on the head, I want them to have it easier than I ever could have. And I take that same mentality when I embrace these mentor mentee opportunities. Anybody that I mentor, I want you to have so much more success in the sports industry than I ever could. And I really take that on. And it's part of the reason I love doing things like this podcast. So again, just the work ethic was brought into me at a very young age, and I'm grateful for the opportunities and the doorways that it's opened for me to get an NBA championship ring, but also to be here talking to you here in 2023, sharing the love, sharing some of the knowledge. And if anybody takes one thing away from what we're talking about today, that is a huge win to me and a huge compliment to me.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate when I, can have, the whole reason I'm doing this is so that I can hear stories about sports professionals and like the reality of what it actually is like to work in sports. Cause it's not all sunshine and daisies and fun days and, meeting players and all that. Like there's a lot of hard work and grind and stories that come from people that work in sports like yourself. So I appreciate you sharing some of that personal nature with us. It definitely doesn't fall on deaf ears here. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think the last one here that we had was just kind of what we just alluded to. You talked about mentor mentee relationships. I think that's a really important part. Networking is huge. You have to know people in this business. It's just not good enough for what you know. It's really who you know. It's experience over education. Shout out to my last interview with Haley Doherty of the Hawks. She gave me that great quote, experience over education. And I love that so much because you can know everything in the world, but if you don't know how to apply it and you don't know people to apply it with, it's going to be really hard for you to make it in this business. So kind of closing thoughts here. Tell me what you would what you want to leave people with, some advice that you would give to the next generation of sports professionals. So go for it.
Yeah, I mean, networking, you hit the nail on the head. That's something that isn't going to go away even when you get this position. I mean, thankfully, we live in a generation, in a day and age where like LinkedIn is king, and to be able to connect with people there, it's one of the first things that I'll bring up whenever I again am speaking to people looking to be doing what I'm doing full time. So the opportunity to use your resources, whether that's something that's on campus or otherwise, like sports is so tight knit, and it's such a like almost like a family, that if you start to build this reputation for yourself and you start to get people talking about who you are, you don't know all the crazy connections that are in this industry, and how making a good impression on so and so could lead to an opportunity for a job halfway across the country, right? So ultimately that networking piece is something that if you're using it to break in, great, you've got a jump start then on being successful in a sales facing role, because you're doing that same kind of communication, introduction, etc., with any business that you're trying to connect with that maybe you don't know. And to that point, if you know somebody in the business world and you knock their socks off and you wow them, it is crazy how many referrals and how many doors that's going to open up for you, and how many people are going to want to share the experiences that you provided by doing a great job the first go around. So yes, absolutely. The networking piece is huge. I think have a mentor, or have multiple mentors, or have somebody that's in your corner for you. I can't tell you how vital that was for me at a young age, to have somebody that took a shot on me for traveling basketball and the opportunities that the coach and now one of still my dear mentors back home has given me. And he shared a lot of great wisdom with me, and made me not only a better ball player at the time, but he made me a better man. And I think he taught me a lot of great life lessons and the value of like hard work and adversity. And, since you mentioned Haley dropped a quote on you, I'll drop the one that
Drop
he
it.
always shared with me. And it was, adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. And I
Mm.
love thinking about that, where it's true. Like when life, knocks you down and kicks you on your ass, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to sit there and complain and cry about it? Or are you going to have the mentality that I'm going to get back up and I'm going to do even better? Or how many people are going to tell you you can't do something, especially in a sales role? I'm getting rejected over 90% of the time. If I let that impact me and I didn't overcome that adversity, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I think being able to be Teflon, let that roll off your shoulders, not impact you, and still bring that grit, that passion, that determination day in and day out is huge. And it applies not just to your career, but to life and beyond. So it was the words of wisdom that he shared that just really, again, put a fire in my belly from a very young age. And I haven't let go of that still.
I love that. Yeah, I think you need it. You need the fire. You need to have those people around you because, when you get knocked down, it's not always yourself to pick yourself up. Some people need to help pick you up. And that's why it's really important to surround yourself with great mentors and great coworkers and people in your corner, your wife, like to help you out of those times when, you just don't have the strength to keep going. So don't think you have to do it alone either. Definitely build community, have mentors, have mentees when you get to that point so you can give back and we can really make, the sports community that much stronger. So thank you for sharing all that, Zach.
Yeah. Well, and one last thing I'd probably share is, and this is something that helped me through my younger days as a rep, is every year, every new sales campaign, I had a picture on my desk of what I was working for that year. So my very first year, actually, my wife and I were about to get married, I think 3 months after I took the job with the Bucks. So I had something like wedding themed in this picture frame on my desk.
Mm.
The next year it was a house. The next year, we knew we were expecting. So it was like baby stuff. Like find what motivates you. And whenever you do face those challenges or those adversities, that's the reminder that you need. That's the why behind what you do. And I can't tell you how many times I just felt like giving up or just slacking off or not giving it my all on the job. And that little subtle reminder was so key to keeping me on pace and on track to be able to hit and exceed my goals. And it's still something I do to this day, but obviously my priorities have changed a little bit now with kids. So it's just the kids are what I work for. But
Yeah.
I think have that and whatever it is. Do you want that new car on the driveway? Do you need a house? Do you want that new pair of Jordans? Whatever it is, like figure out what you want and attack it. And having that mentality or having that little tip or trick is something that I still use 7 years into the job. And I think it's been super awesome and highly encourage that for the younger reps out there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Zach, thank you so much for taking some time today to speak with us. I know that people listening are really thankful to have someone that is so senior to give experience and our first male guest. So thank you for shouting out your wife and all the amazing women in your life too. I think it's super important to be able to do that, and just to give back your experience. I truly think that, you're more like Giannis than you think. So take that, please take that. And I just thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you. A shout out women in sports too. I'm honored to be the first male guest. So women in sports, keep crushing it. And like I said, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you ever want to have a conversation with me outside of listening to this podcast, Zach Younker, I think is just whatever goes after the slash, but look me up. Look forward to being able to have any and every conversation and make that next generation of sports professionals even better than I was starting out. But BJ, pleasure to chat with you. It was an honor. Thank you for comparing me to the great Giannis. I will take that into me, take that into the office every day. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to allow me to talk to everybody.
You bet. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You too.
That's all the time we got for today, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. I told you there would be nuggets, words of wisdom, amazing quotes. Write that on a post-it, put it on your fridge or on your desk. Just like Zach said, have that picture of what you're going for, right at your desk when you're working, so you know what you're working towards. Just a really great episode. Thank you so much, Zach, for joining us. If you want to connect with him, again, in my show notes, LinkedIn, and all the platforms. Here at Role Players, we're just appreciative of you all, and we hope this content is hitting home. Please comment and leave some thoughts if you wanted to see something different. I'm definitely looking for more guests for the show and future episodes. So, hit me up. I'm here. Thank you so much, and have a blessed day, blessed week. And we'll see y'all next Tuesday. Peace.